Welcome back to ArkanSense, where we try to make sense of the issues affecting Arkansans. And today, we're going to talk about voting in Arkansas. We'll cover who can vote, how to register, how to vote absentee if you won't be around, and how to vote in person if you will. Links are in the description if you want to jump directly to one of those sections. But before all of that, let's talk about why voting in Arkansas specifically is so important. Did you know that Arkansas is one of the states where your vote can matter the most? In both 2012 and 2018, Arkansas had the second lowest voter turnout percentage in the country. And while this is not great news, it does have one upside. It means your vote in Arkansas counts for more than it would in nearly any other state. Arkansas has had plenty of close races too. In 1998, 3 elections in the state were decided by just one vote. In the Pine Bluff mayor's race in 2008, the sitting mayor was just one vote shy of avoiding a runoff election. And in 2010, the election for sheriff in Stone County tied, went to a runoff, and then tied again. Also, Arkansas is one of a very few states that allows citizens to sign a petition and get laws, constitutional amendments, and repeals of state laws onto the ballot. Combine that with our low voter turnout, and it means Arkansas could very well be the state where your individual vote can have the most sway over state policy. So now that you know why you should vote, let's talk about how to do it. And let's begin with this. Who can vote in Arkansas? For starters, you have to turn 18 on or before the day of the election you want to vote in. You need to be a U.S. citizen and also a resident of Arkansas. University students who return home on breaks have the option of either voting in the place they come from or switching their voter registration to wherever their university is. And if you have multiple homes in different counties or states, you have to pick one county in one state in which you will vote. There are also a few things that could disqualify you from being allowed to vote. First, you can't vote if you're in jail, on parole, or a convicted felon and still have outstanding fines or jail time to serve. If you were in jail or on parole for a non-felony offense, you can vote again as soon as you're done. No extra step necessary. But if you were convicted of a felony, once you've served your time and paid your fines, you need to bring proof of that to your county clerk and have your right to vote reinstated. Finally, you can't vote if a court has declared you mentally incompetent, though this is incredibly rare. If you meet all those requirements, there's one more step you have to take before you can vote. You have to register. Or if you've already registered but anything on that registration has changed, you have to update it. That includes if you're at a different address or you've changed your name. Either way, your registration has to be completed by 30 days before the election you want to vote in. There are plenty of places where you can register in person, including the county clerk's office, the state revenue office, public libraries, public assistance agencies, disability agencies, and military recruitment offices. If you prefer to do things from home, you can request a registration by calling the county clerk, submit an electronic request, or print your own registration and mail it off from sos.arkansas.gov. And you can do this even if you're 17 now, but will be 18 by the time of the election you want to vote in. Once you've got the actual registration form, you'll check a box on it indicating whether it's a new voter registration or an update of an old one. The rest of the form is pretty standard: name, date of birth, and address. You'll be asked to provide either a driver's license or social security number, and if you don't have one of those, there's a box to check for that and a few extra steps to go through. You'll also see there's a box for party affiliation, which is optional to fill out. Unlike some states where you can only vote in a primary election for the party you say you're affiliated with, Arkansas has open primaries, so filling this out won't limit your options. Finally, if you're updating your voter registration from an old one, you have to provide your old information as well. All that's left is to sign it and date it and either postmark it or hand it in yourself. After it's in about 2 weeks, you'll receive a voter registration card. This card will tell you where your polling place is, as well as what precinct or zone you're in for your local elections. You can also check the status of your registration by either calling the county clerk or online at voterview.org. So you're registered. But now, when do you vote? Well, there are 3 types of elections: general elections, primary elections, and special elections. General elections happen the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. Primary elections happen earlier in that year and are how both national and local parties select their candidates for the general election. Finally, special elections are called when something needs to be decided in between other election days, like a runoff or a special local issue. Honestly, it can get hard to keep up with all the different elections, so the easiest way may be to check your local newspaper or to make a mental note the next time you see a sign in someone's yard for a candidate or issue, and then search online for when that election is happening. The actual hours when you can vote will vary based on what kind of election you're voting in and what day you're voting on. While technically only one day is called Election Day, that's just the final day you can vote. Arkansas allows for early voting, which is great for people who can't make it to the polls on voting day or just want to avoid long lines to vote. Some elections allow 1 week of early voting, while others allow 15 days. Voting early follows the exact same process as voting on the day of the election, with one major exception: where you go to vote. If you're voting on election day in a general or primary, you can vote either at your assigned polling place, which is on your voter registration card, or at the county clerk's office. But if you're voting early or in a special election, there will often be a more limited number of polling places. You can find out about these places in the local newspaper or the county clerk's website, but no matter what, you can always vote in person at the county clerk's office. If you can get yourself to the polling place, that's great, but if not, there are often other transportation options. Some rideshare services like Uber and Lyft offer free or discounted rides to polling places on election day. You can also contact the local headquarters of whichever party you're affiliated with or one of the candidates and see if they offer rides to the polls. This is legal as long as they don't offer you any money or goods to try and bribe your vote. But if you know in advance that you likely won't be able to make it to the polling place, even to vote early, you can apply for an absentee ballot. There are plenty of reasons you might need to vote absentee, from being deployed with the armed services to just not having a way to get to the polls, and you aren't required to specify your reason, so definitely vote absentee if you need to. To vote absentee, you first have to apply for an absentee ballot. You can get the application online or at your county clerk's office and must return it to the county clerk. The application will let you select which election you want to vote absentee in, and then you can choose whether you want the ballot mailed to you or to pick it up in person. Once you have your actual absentee ballot, fill it out, then either mail it or drop it off yourself. If you're mailing it in, the deadline for it to arrive is 7 days before the election. If it's being dropped off in person, that deadline is whenever the county clerk's office closes the day before election day. But let's say you're going to vote in person. What should you bring, and what should you definitely not bring to the polling place? As of right now, early 2020, Arkansas law requires you to bring one piece of photo identification to verify your voter registration. The most common form of ID is a driver's license, though there are plenty of others that work too, including, but not limited to, a passport, military ID, public assistance card, state-issued photo ID card, concealed handgun carry license, or voter verification card. If you don't have a photo ID, you can get a voter verification card from your county clerk, though you'll need to do that before Election Day. Also, if your ID has an expiration date, you can still use it to vote as long as it hasn't been expired for more than 4 years. If you like, you could also make and bring with you a voter cheat sheet. You can get information on who and what you'll be voting for from websites like Ballotpedia and Vote 411 in the local newspaper, or by requesting a copy of your ballot from your county clerk. Once you've got this information, you can make notes however you like and bring them on voting day, including on paper or on your phone. And Arkansas is one of the states where you're allowed to take a selfie with your ballot while you're in the voting booth, if you like. You definitely cannot bring anything into a polling place that is meant to influence another voter, so leave your pamphlets, yard signs, and flyers at home or in your car. You may see some people outside your polling place with them, but they have to stay at least 100 feet away from the entrance to that polling place. Also, don't enter a polling place wearing a shirt or other piece of clothing supporting a candidate or issue that's on that year's ballot. Finally, in Arkansas, bringing a gun into a polling place is not prohibited statewide, but it's not universally allowed either. Firearms are not allowed in certain government buildings and schools, which is where some polling places are located. So it's probably best to either leave your gun at home or call your polling place first to see what the specific rules for that venue are. So you've arrived at your polling place. What happens next? Well, depending on where you're voting, you may need to go through a metal detector, so be ready for that. Next, if you came to vote on Election Day, you'll probably have to wait in line for a bit, so make sure you arrive in time to allow for this. But also keep in mind that as long as you're in line before the polls close, you will be allowed to vote. Once you've reached the front of the line, the polling person will ask to see your ID and will ask you to sign something saying you were voting at that location. Provisional ballots, which you can verify your ID for later, are also available if you forget your ID, if your registration is questioned, or if you're not on the registered voters list for some reason. This is also the time to speak up if you have special needs like a braille ballot or assistance with voting. You can have up to 2 poll workers or one person who has come with you to assist you in voting. If this is a primary race, you'll be asked which party's primary you'd like to vote in. You can either choose between parties or choose to only vote in nonpartisan races. Once that's all taken care of, you may also be asked if you want to vote electronically or on paper, though some polling places will only offer one option. So let's walk through both of them. There are 2 types of electronic voting machines used in Arkansas. One kind stores your vote internally, then prints out a tally of all votes once the voting is completed. The other prints out just your ballot when you're finished. One of the benefits of electronic voting is that it will keep you from overvoting or marking too many candidates in one race. However, you're always allowed to choose to not vote in a race or write in a candidate if you like. Once you've made selections in all your races or confirm that you purposely chose not to in some of them, you'll be taken to a screen where you can review your choices. From here, you can either go back and change them or confirm your final vote. If you're using a machine that stores votes internally, then you're done. But if you're using one that prints out a physical ballot, then you'll need to drop that off in a ballot box. Always do this yourself. On the other hand, if you're voting on paper, you'll use a pen to fill out your ballot by filling in the ovals next to your selections. Make sure you don't accidentally mark more than one oval in a single race, and if you do, tell a polling person and they'll get you a new ballot. You can do this up to 2 times. Once you're done filling in your ballot, check over the whole thing. When you're sure it's good to go, one of 2 things will happen depending on what county you're in. If you're in a county that uses an optical scanner, your last step is to feed your ballot into the optical scanner. The scanner will tally up your votes and will also warn you if it detects an overvote, in which case you'll have the chance to fix your ballot. Otherwise, all you'll do is drop your vote into a ballot box. Regardless of whether you voted on a machine or on paper, you cannot take your ballot outside of a polling site. And once you've submitted your ballot, you cannot change your vote. And that's it. Now you know who can vote, how to register, when and where elections happen, and how to vote absentee or in person. Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this and want to see more videos like it, please support ArkanSense on Patreon. Patreon is the easiest way to support content makers in a way that works for your budget. You decide how much you want to give each month, and you can change that amount at any time. Bigger donations get bigger perks, including picking a topic for an upcoming episode. And speaking of perks, thanks to patrons Zach Green, Jordan Little, and W. Don Hughes, as well as everyone you see on screen for making this video happen. Thanks again, and see you next time for more ArkanSense.